recognize the turn even if I seen it. Been driving all along, feel like I'm dreaming. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Street Apologists Live. I'm your host, Vocab Malone. And yeah, I know it's late, and yeah, I know I got the information up for the last show, but don't worry, I'm going to fix that right now. And we're going to get into an interesting show here today. I know that it's way late, and I know that you're not expecting this. And listen, I got a lot going on, but I really had to do this. The man left me really with no choice, and I almost feel bad doing this. This is like when your kid, paints or draws with crayon one of their first pictures. To say, you recognize the intent, but it's not good art. It's not quality. That's what we have here. Hakah, he's made a mess of himself. He is so proud of what he accomplished in this video that you see on the screen. He is so proud of it. And yet, it's amateur hour. And I am going to have to show that here today. What we're going to do is look at this as a learning opportunity. It'll be good for the audience to see what goes on with the art and science of textual criticism. It'll be good for Hakah's fanboys and fangirls to see that he really is an ignorant man and does not know what he's talking about. And it'll be good, hopefully, to break some people out of this cult. Sorry for the long intro. My name is Vocab Malone. Today is Tuesday, March 14th, 1:08 a.m. Pacific time. And I'm looking forward to this. I hope Hakah will also learn from this. He's the number 2 in the Sicarii organization, and he is very affectionately known as the Dunning-Kruger Deacon. Somebody should please look up Dunning-Kruger, and you will understand what I'm saying. I'm getting my volume a little bit louder here. I think it was a little too quiet there. So I'm getting it a little bit louder, and I'd like to know how I sound to you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know, please. Okay, so let's take a look at some things, and I think the best way to do it, honestly, is just getting right into this video here on Street Apologists Live. Let's play this video. This is from Hakah, and the title of this video, what was it? It was Vocab Malone Christian Zombie Apocalypse. Yeah, the title of the video is Vocab Malone Christian Zombie Apocalypse. And he really thought that he had done something here. He really thought that he had me or something like that. Here's the cover art here. So cover art. And if you wonder why I'm going to be kind of rough on this novice here tonight, it's because he also has videos like this coming up. That's our dear sister Cherry, and he put the watermelon in front of her face and titled it Blubbery Christian Apologist Challenges Hebrew Israelites. So this is how this man is. So he deserves an education. I almost titled this show The Miseducation of Deacon Hakah. It's tough calling him Deacon. Got to put it in quotes there. All right. And yes, this is live. This is live. So pay attention. This is deep. I'm concerned it's going to go over Hakah's 5'8" head. I'm concerned about that, but I'm going to do my best to put the cookies on the bottom shelf. So let's start right here where Hakah is reviewing one of my interviews with Mike Winger, and this is 1 hour, 45 seconds into it. Let's play this. Listen closely. You have the Greeks that are mentioned in Acts chapter 11.
Whoa. Y'all hear that? In Acts chapter 11, hold on a second.
In Acts chapter 8, you have the Greeks that are mentioned in Acts chapter 11. So, I'm talking to Mike here about how this universal mission of the early church is played out in the book of Acts. And I'm giving these examples off the top of my head. One of them is Acts chapter 11. And he thinks he's got something. He thought he found the golden goose that laid the golden egg. And it is so sad when you watch this. So sad. Yes, we are live. This is Treated Apologist Live, and I'm really live, everyone. I see you all there. And most of watch this.
Wait, hold on. Do we see? Let's. He just did something. This is bad. This is bad. Let's type in.
So he goes to Blue Letter Bible, which is a fine enough online website. But if you're going to claim to be a scholar, a biblical scholar like Deacon Hakah does, not just of the Bible, but of the Talmud, your only resource cannot be Blue Letter Bible, King James Version. But yet, that is the only resource this man is really going to utilize to try to shoot me down. So, I want you to pay careful attention. He's going to search for Greeks, because I said, yeah, Greeks is there in Acts chapter 11. Now, let's watch what he says.
Word Greeks. If you guys know me, you know how we're about to serve it right now.
So, the trash talk is eminently unfortunate on his part. I'm getting some of you saying the video's stopping and not having sound. Let me try something else here. Let me know. Give me a 1 if you can hear things. I'm trying to make some changes here. All right, here we go.
Now let's see if there's any Greeks in Acts chapter 11. There's no Greeks in Acts chapter 11. Let's type in.
So, first of all, if you put Greek or Greeks, it will usually give you. It's going to be tough tonight, guys, because this is so bad and he's so happy about it. Okay? So, I mentioned in the video, Acts chapter 11 mentions outreach to the Greeks. He went to the King James Version, Blue Letter Bible, English, and says, look, no Greeks are there. So, he thinks he's got something. I would like you all to please turn to Acts chapter 11. Whatever translation you have will work. We'll work it out. Don't worry. It's not a problem. I'm going to show you a few things here. Okay? Let's get started right now. I'm going to put something on the screen here for you guys. I'm going to go into Logos to do this, okay? So, by the way, his trash talk, it's not over, but I just want to immediately show you guys what's going on so you immediately understand, okay? Switching over to Logos view. And yes, it's doing that. So I have to readjust the camera every now and then. That's going to be part of the show. Okay. Now, let's see here. Actually, it looks better the other way. Okay. Now I'm going to bring up the NIV first, okay? This is the New International Version. Acts chapter 11, verse 20. This is the section that he is looking at. You're going to see later where he says it's not Greeks, okay? Acts 11:20. Some of them, however, men from Cyprus and Cyrene went to Antioch and began to speak to Greeks also, telling them the good news about the Lord Jesus. That's interesting. So it wasn't when he looked in the KJV at Acts 11. He did not find it. But yet when I pull up the NIV, it's there. Now, is it only the NIV where you can find actual word translated Greeks in the English translation? Well, actually, it's also in the RSV. This is a Revised Standard Version. I'm going to make it bigger here. I want you to look closely on the screen. Now, some of your translations, if you have the King James Version, it's not going to say it. If you have the ESV, it's not going to say it. But if you have these translations I'm showing you, it is going to say it. But there were some of them, men of Cyprus and Cyrene, who on coming to Antioch spoke to the Greeks also, preaching the Lord Jesus. So now we see already 2 translations. Well, now let's go to the NET. That's the New English Translation. Go to Acts chapter 11, verse 20, New English Translation. But there were some men from Cyprus and Cyrene among them who came to Antioch and began to speak to the Greeks too, proclaiming the good news of the Lord Jesus. Now, I'm going to actually show you these Bibles in real life, and I'm going to add one more. Just give me a second here. Poor Hakah. It's incredibly embarrassing for him. All right, just give me a second here. Why is it showing Josh White on there? That is an accident. Okay, let me fix this real quick. Take away that camera. and take away this right here. Okay, so now I have another translation yet. This is the CSB, the Christian Standard Bible. And I'm going to go to Acts chapter 11, verse 20. What do you think it's going to say in Acts 11:20? Well, you probably already know if you're catching the vibe of this show. It's right there. Acts 11:20. You see it? I know it's kind of blurry, but you can probably make out where it says Greeks. That's the CSB. I've also got the physical copy of the NET right here. The physical copy, which has all the textual notes. Not only that, I have a physical copy of the NIV, which I showed earlier on the stream. Not only that, now let's bring up the NASB, the New American Standard Bible. Let's go to Acts chapter 11, verse 20, in the New American Standard Bible. But there were some of them, men of Cyprus and Cyrene, who came to Antioch and began speaking to the Greeks also. Now, I know it's blurry when I do it like that, but you can kind of make it out. It takes a while to focus, but I don't want to wait on it. So it's also in the New American Standard. Well, that's not the only translations. I'm going to tell you all the translations that have it. Now, we're not going to stop there. I'm going to tell you why it's there as well. So remember, the contention is, I said to Mike, Greeks are in Acts chapter 11. Hakah says, no, they're not in Acts chapter 11. This is a major cut, vocab. Well, he should have looked at the New Revised Standard Version, because we only looked at the RSV, so he should have looked at the NRSV. He should have looked at not just the NIV, but the TNIV. He should have looked at the NEB, that's the New English Bible. He should have looked at the REB, that's the Revised English Bible, I believe. He should have looked at the NJB, that's the New Jerusalem Bible. He should have looked at the NAB, that's the New American Bible, I believe. He should have looked at the marginal note in the New Living Translation. And I showed the Christian Standard Bible, but prior to that was the Holman Christian Standard Bible, the HCSB, and he should have looked at the marginal note in there as well. So he should have looked there. But this man thinks that scholarship is going on Blue Letter and looking in English at the KJV and calling it a day. Now, I'm going to show Hakah that he should always second guess himself when he's going against me on an issue. Now, I'm not perfect. I've been wrong plenty of times. I may make a mistake this show, and if so, I'll try to correct it later on. But when it comes to a man of low character and low learning like himself, he should always troubleshoot the issue. Now, the thing with troubleshooting is you can't really accurately or adequately do it unless you know potential problems and potential solutions, potential issues. So if someone from IT comes to your cubicle to fix your computer, they poke around first because they know it could be a variety of things. It's called troubleshooting. Hakah has no idea how to troubleshoot. He literally looked up the KJV in the Blue Letter in English and thought he was done. He patted himself on the back and made a whole show about it. It is incredibly embarrassing. All I showed you right now is he should have looked at other translations. Now, here's the thing. When you look at other translations and you see that kind of difference, so in the KJV it says Grecians, which means Hellenists. When you see that kind of difference, it should be a clue that there's something going on. It's either an interpretive issue a lot of times, or sometimes it's actually a textual issue. And indeed tonight it is primarily a textual issue. Now it relates to interpretation, but I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So here I bring up the Greek New Testament. This is the Fourth Revised Edition. They're farther along now. This is put out by the United Bible Societies. This is what I had when I was in seminary. And you don't just keep on buying them all the time, even though they keep on putting them out. Now, here's the Greek text. This is the printed Greek text. This is what most modern translations use. Let me show you guys something. It's going to get blurry, but I have to explain this to you. This is for you, my new student, Deacon Hakah. And I will take Cash App. Street Apologist is my Cash App. Send me a Cash App for this free class, Deacon Hakah. And I know you have plenty of money because I've seen how many head wraps you sell. Now, let's look here. Acts 11:20. Do you see in Acts 11, the Greek text? That's not what I want you to focus on. We'll get to that later. Do you see that big underline right there? See that underline, ladies and gentlemen? It's an underline. And it's underneath the Greek text, right? And then there's these small little printed things. You see that underneath there? Now, if you've had any Greek or ever poked around in the Greek New Testament or been in seminary or anything like that, you know that anything below the line is what's called the critical apparatus. Sometimes you'll hear people say textual apparatus, I think. But the critical apparatus is a tool at the bottom of the Greek text designed to explain to someone who can make their way through the footnotes about any potentially viable variant readings. A variant reading is where you have one manuscript reading one way and another manuscript reading another. Now, there's variants all over the New Testament, and it's quite an art and science. My friend Eddie Dalcour, whom I was with this weekend because of M2M, he knows this stuff better than I. I wish he could be here right now, but he can't. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm still in relationship to the amateur, a professional. Now, I'm not actually a professional, but in relationship to the level of amateur scholarship that Hakah possesses, I would be a professional compared to him. So let me explain how the textual critical apparatus works. See that where there's a little line on 20? And again, I know this is all blurry. I'm going to show it on the screen in a second here, okay? What it does is it shows you major witnesses to the variants. What that means is this Vaticanus, for example, reads this way. This Beza, for example, reads that way. This early Armenian translations reads that way. So sometimes it'll not just be in the Greek. This lectionary reads this way. Chrysostom, when he cited this passage, read it this way. And it's kind of difficult to get through because it's a lot of abbreviations, but with a little bit of elbow grease, as the old timers say, you can get through it. And so here in Acts 11:20, we see there's a variant. If Hakah knew what he was doing, he would have first looked at an alternate translation besides one from the early 17th century. Okay? And he would have seen, wait, some read Grecians or Hellenists, and some read Greeks. Well, those are two different things by most people's reckoning. A Hellenist is usually understood to be a Greek-speaking Jew. But a Greek is either an actual Greek proper or sometimes used as shorthand for a Gentile in general. Now, we're specifically talking mainly about biblical literature here, okay? Well, there's a textual variant. Some witnesses read Hellenistas. That's the form of the word. Others read Hellenos. And I'm looking at it right in front of myself. It's right in front of me. I'm literally looking at it right now. That's why some translations have Grecians or Hellenists, and others actually say Greeks, because there's a variant there. You should have looked this up, Hakah. You could have saved yourself so much embarrassment if you would have just done this. My goodness, I should give you my email, thestreetapologist@gmail.com. Next time something like this comes up, email me first. I will help you save yourself from this level of embarrassment. Because if anyone is able to follow what's happening, we're not even into this really. They'll understand the man does not know what he's doing. Now, I remember one time these guys were doing a show. And they were looking at a lexicon, and they were so proud of the lexicon they had. And I just was in a live chat. This is before they timed me out and blocked me, even though I've never done anything rude or out of pocket. You know, I said, yeah, well, you want to get the standard one, right? At least. So, told them what it was. And it was this guy. All right? It was this guy, standard one, right? So they got it, which is nice. But listen, giving this to someone like Hakah is the equivalent of handing a fully loaded bazooka to a 2-year-old. They don't know how to use it, and in case if they ever do, it's going to be dangerous and misdirected. That's what happened when he tried to use this. Now, we're not going to go too deep into that element, but I am going to show you this live on your screen, the textual critical apparatus, okay? Because I really want you guys to get this. And this will take multiple exposures to do that. What's up? Shout out to Josh. That's from a thumbnail for a show we did, and somehow it snuck in the show. Okay. We're going to go to the Greek. All right. This is the NA Nestle Aland 28th edition. NA 28. It's already on your screen. See verse 20 right here. Now, we're not going to read this whole thing, okay? Because it's not all relevant. But we are going to read. See if you can find it. It's right here. This is the part that is under consideration. Now, here it says, see, that's called a rough breathing mark. That little doodad there. Looks like a comma. It's a rough breathing mark. And then what do we have? We have the epsilon. We have lambda, two of those. Okay, you're following along. We have eta. We have the nu. Okay. Iota. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you understand this is it, right? And off with the alpha and a sigma. Okay. Just because why am I telling you how to spell it in Greek? I don't know. But here's what's important. This part right here. See this little bracket? When you click on it, it actually gives you the digital version in Logos of the text critical apparatus. Now, it appears over here on the right side of the screen, but it's much smaller. You can kind of see it a little bit above my head right there. Right there. But I'm just going to show it to you when it does the pop-up window. Okay, I'm still in kind of the way, so let me move my window over here, and I want to show you the pop-up window that it gives you when you click on it, okay? Because what's going to do is going to show you the text critical apparatus, just like I was talking about earlier, okay? So here we go. Okay, see? Oh, it does it wherever I move. Hold on, I'm going to have to make myself real small here for this to work. That's annoying. Okay, I'm going to do something real small here for this to work. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, here we go. All right, now there it is. So, it's saying certain readings, and this is the first one we're going to look at, which that is where you get Greeks from. That is the word for Greeks, basically. The breathing mark, epsilon, lambda, eta, nu, alpha, sigma. You see that? That's the top one. I can't put my mouse on it because it'll take it off. You won't be able to see it anymore. So I can't do that for you. So you just have to look at it there. I know it's not exactly as big as I would want it to be. But there you see it. And then it gives a list of witnesses. Do you see that strange looking P? That's P74. So that means papyrus number 74. Then what else do you have? Well, you have that sign as first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph. What is Aleph? That is the way that scholars who do textual criticism let you know they're talking about Codex Sinaiticus. So this is Sinaiticus. But notice how it has a little 2. See in the superscription 2? That means it's in the second hand. So not just one person copied Sinaiticus. This is a full, complete Bible in its initial state. So this is taking multiple people. Once the scholar actually came to Phoenix with Tyndale House, who is the first and foremost expert, he's British, of course, in the different hands of Sinaiticus. And we had an amazing discussion. He was there with Peter, I believe J. Williams is his full name, but it was his buddy. It wasn't him. It's a Northern European name. I forget off the top of my head. But that means it's the second hand there. And then you have, do you see where it says A? That A, of course, is Alexandrinus, which is housed in London. It's from the 5th century. And then the last one there that you see is D. D is for Beta Cantabrigius. I always have trouble pronouncing this. Cantabriginius. And that's from the 5th century. And that little asterisk is letting you know that the original reads our way, but there's a corrective. Now, some of this gets kind of technical. But basically what it's showing you is the different witnesses that have the reading for Greeks to be the word there, because some witnesses, textually speaking, do have what would be the English equivalent, or I'm sorry, the Greek equivalent of our English word Hellenist. Some have Greek. Now, these are similar looking and sounding words in a way. There's some similarity there. And it's an interesting thing. Now, we're not really done there. If you go deeper and look into this, you'll find a number of other places where this term Greeks would appear, which is what I was pointing at in Acts 11:20. So notice I've already mentioned big bad boy Sinaiticus. That's a big deal. Alexandrinus is also a steady, very important witness. And then, of course, Beza is hit or miss, basically. I'll just put it that way. P74, I believe, is the earliest example of Acts 11, because we have early copies of Acts, but P74, which is part of the Bodmer collection, it's, I believe, our earliest witness to Acts 11 in Greek, if I'm not mistaken. Well, there's more. So I looked these up. There's an old, I think it's a minuscule, if I'm not mistaken, but I know it's in the Alexandrian type, so maybe it's not actually. It used to be called apparently 1518, but now it looks like it's called 1896. So it's a little difficult to track down because it goes by different names. This next one I'm going to talk about. Now it's later, but you got to understand how textual criticism works. The majority of witnesses are not the super early ones. They are the later ones. And that's when the text is even more stable, as you would expect. 14th, 15th century, this 1896, if indeed it is 1518, which I believe it's the same one. It has Acts, Pauline epistles, but it does not have Galatians. It's about 274 pages. It's actually housed, I believe, in Jerusalem, and something called Stravos 37. And it's part of this collection from the Patriarchate of Jerusalem. And a lot of this information you can find online, or if you have the proper book. So usually people use a combination of both, okay? Well, not only that, hold on, why am I, well, I'm going to leave this up for now. I know I'm small down here at the screen, but I just want people to be able to see this, okay? Not only that, but in the Armenian translations, so this is like from the 5th century, you also have Greeks. A lot of the early translations, for example, Old Church Slavonic as well. And so it's not just in these big witnesses, it's in other places. Now, there are other places where Hellenists appears. So this is a question about the textual viability of each one. So we're going to have to look at these through a variety of means. But first, I want to go back to Hakah and show you what he's saying here, okay? This is because I want to recalibrate the issue here, all right?
And see if that pops up for Acts chapter 11.
Let's recalibrate this issue.
This is about to be so bad.
It's going to be so bad,
you
y'all.
guys should know how I'm about to get down right now.
The arrogance is astounding.
Okay, there's no Greek in Acts chapter 11. But watch this, y'all. Let's type in the word Grecian and see if that's in Acts chapter 11. Grecians. This is a head lob.
If you wonder why I'm kind of rough on him, he said what he's doing right now in the blue letter of the KJV is a head lob, meaning my figuratively speaking, my head is coming off. By the way, that's a little disconcerting from guys who say in the future they actually will do that to their enemies. Remember that. So it's, I don't speak this way when I'm talking about scholarship, but this man is not a scholar. He's a novice. He's an amateur. He's not someone that anyone should listen to about anything, maybe except how to construct bars, because he's a decent MC. That's really the area he excels in. This is not an area he excels in. It's like when Kobe Bryant tried to rap. Well, here you have a situation where a guy who's a decent rapper is trying to do biblical scholarship, and it's bad. I've already shown you that there are multiple witnesses that have Greeks. This is not even getting into the interpretational issue, because even if it did say Hellenist, which is a possible reading, as I've mentioned, the internal logic of the text dictates a certain understanding. And we're going to get into that, but you're going to have to really follow along. So listen to what he says. He's going to say Grecians, which is the KJV way to say Hellenist. Again, a Hellenist is a person who is a Greek-speaking Jew. Let me give you an example from a lexicon here. So this is the New Analytical Greek Lexicon, right? And it's not just Greek-speaking. It usually indicates adopting Greek culture and dress and things like that, usually when we say Hellenist here. It is on page 136 here of this. This is a brief entry. And here we got, it says this for this entry. To imitate the Greeks, one who uses the language and follows the customs of the Greeks. In New Testament, a Jew by blood, but a native of a Greek-speaking country. Hellenist. And they give two examples, Acts 6:1, Acts 9:29. They don't give Acts 11:20 because it's a matter of dispute, but that's what a Hellenist is. So he thinks what this is saying, because he turned to the KJV and Blue Letter in English, that they went and shared the gospel to the Hellenists. So he thinks that means, oh, that would only be other Israelites or Jews who happen to speak Greek. But remember, I said Greeks is in Acts 11, and I just showed you that it is. But he's going with the older reading, where the KJV from the, like I said, early 17th century translates it this way. But again, that doesn't tell you the interpretation, which we're still going to get into the interpretation regardless of the word. That's important, and I have some good commentaries to help us do that. But listen to what he says here.
Oh, well, I see Grecians. I see Grecians in Acts chapter 11. So this is what vocab Malone is referring to.
Now, here's the thing. Hakah, you should have done more than what you did here. Because notice he says this is what vocab Malone is referring to, right? As if he definitely knows, well, he was talking about Acts 11:20. Now, I was talking about Acts 11:20, okay? And I showed you why. However, let's say that he didn't see it, and he was wondering, well, what's vocab talking about? You know what he could have done? Let me show you. Here's what he could have done. This would have been a good move on his part. Just a minute, I'm going to fix some of this picture-in-picture shape stuff right here. This would have been a good move on his part. He should have went to Acts 11. Okay, let's bring it up. We got the NET in front of us. Let's go to there, right there. Okay, this is the second edition. I'm going to make it bigger so you can see it. Okay, all right. Now, I'm going to show you Acts 11, what it says. Are you guys paying attention? I really need you to follow here. I know it's late, but this is fundamental to this discussion. And this is not just nitpicking, because this relates to salvation, ladies and gentlemen. This relates to our mission as Christians. This relates to what the church is supposed to do. Acts 11. So we're focusing on 20, but he should have looked at the whole chapter and thought, well, maybe. Watch this. Now the apostles and the brothers who were there throughout Judea heard that the Gentiles too had accepted the word of God. Acts 11:1 literally begins with Luke saying they had heard that the Gentiles too, there's a reason why I would say that way, had accepted the word of God. It literally starts, the very first verse says the Gentiles. So what he should have done is go back to Acts 11:1 and say, you know what? I didn't see Greeks, the actual word Greeks in Acts 11 in my KJV, English Translation, Blue Letter Bible. I didn't see it. But as I look at the whole chapter, maybe vocab was talking about Gentiles and using Greeks synonymously with Gentiles, because it is there. Now, then he could proceed to disagree with me from that point on. But instead, he made a whole video thinking that he had got first place, when in reality, he wasn't even competing. So this would be a charitable reading. And this is what scholars do, actual scholars. They say, okay, what's a way he could have looked at this? They steelman the argument. They say that he could mean this by that. Now let's deal with a stronger version of it. But Hakah doesn't know how to do that. And this is why I even debated if I was going to do this video. Because I was like, imagine, training years to fight champion prize fighters. And then when you finally get in the ring, they throw out a geriatric obese midget for you to fight. That's what's happening. And you just don't know if you want to go through with it. Do you really want to kick that obese geriatric midget? It just doesn't seem fair. But here we are. So what has happened in Acts 11? The Apostle Peter is recounting Acts chapter 10, the chapter before. Notice how my understanding of this, which is a Christian understanding throughout the ages, has merit to it. It makes sense of Acts 10 and Acts 11 together. So Peter's recounting what happened with Cornelius, who even the one Westers used to think, until Tahar convinced them otherwise, was a Gentile. They just thought he got the trick bag. But it's obvious Cornelius is a Gentile, and there's other Gentiles as well. And Peter is recounting this. And then look what he says as he recounts it. He begins with Gentiles, and then he ends with Gentiles. Look at what Acts 11, 38 and 39. Let's look here. Let's start in verse 18. I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say. When they heard this, they ceased their objections. So why would they have objections if these people were actually just Jews, but for some reason they're being called Gentiles? Why would they object? They wouldn't. They would object if they were actually Gentiles. So the objection of the other Christians makes sense upon a reading that hinges with Acts 10 and 11 together, not upon Hakah's atomization, silly misanalysis of the text. So watch this. When they heard this, they ceased their objections and praised God, saying, so this is the conclusion they're reaching. God has granted the repentance that leads to life even to the Gentiles. So they have to be convinced of this. And you don't understand Acts 11 right here unless you understand Acts 10. If you misunderstand Acts 10, as Hakah's religion does, you'll misunderstand this almost on purpose, to be honest with you. But it's right there. If he knew what he was doing, he would have looked at that and said, maybe that's what vocab means, and went from there. But he didn't. He can't. It's so sad. It's the one-string banjo all over again. It's the kid who has one joke, and he keeps on telling it because it got a laugh once. That is what is happening, and I just don't know any other way to put it. Now we come to the place under consideration, Acts 11:19. Now, so this is sort of a new paragraph, new thought, but it nonetheless hangs together. Those who had been scattered because of the persecution that took place over Stephen went as far as Phoenicia, Cyprus, and Antioch. So they're going into these different places, right? Africa, Syria, yada, yada, yada. Speaking the message, now listen to this, to no one but Jews. That's very important to understand what it says there, because it's going to contrast the next line. This reading of Greeks makes sense of Luke saying the people who spread out of the persecution went to Jews only up to this point. And that makes sense because the gospel is to the Jew first, the Gentile or the Greek second. This is making sense. It's sort of an echo of what they did during the ministry of Jesus. So as they're spreading out because of the persecution, they're only going to Jews. But watch verse 20. But, and it's a conjunction. When you look at the conjunction, this is down there in the code at the bottom there. It's what's called a logical contrastive. A logical contrastive. This is the actual Greek understanding of this conjunction right here that is translated as but. So the but is actually belongs in there, and it's a logical contrastive. That makes sense when you compare verse 20 with verse 19, the logical contrastive element. Now watch this. There were some men from Cyprus and Cyrene, so some of them, among them who came to Antioch, so they came from those two places and went into Antioch, and began to speak to the Greeks too. That's what he thinks is Grecians or Hellenists, and what I've shown you many witnesses have as actual Greeks. Proclaiming the good news of the Lord Jesus. The hand of the Lord was with them, and a great number who believed turned to the Lord. So this is saying success among the Gentiles at this point, which is mirroring what happened in Acts 10. A report about them, who's them, came to the attention of the church of Jerusalem, and they sent Barnabas to Antioch. When he came and saw the grace of God, so Barnabas comes out from Jerusalem to say, wait, what's going on with these Greeks getting saved? See, this all makes sense. It doesn't make sense upon Hakah's misunderstanding. He rejoiced and encouraged them all to remain true to the Lord with devoted hearts, because he was a good man, full of the Holy Spirit and of faith, and a significant number of people were brought to the Lord. Then Barnabas departed for Tarsus to look for Saul. When he found him, he brought him to Antioch. So for a whole year, Barnabas and Saul met with the church and taught a significant number of people. So these people will be Jew and Gentile, both, because they're both mentioned in here. Now, it was in Antioch the disciples were first called Christians. Fascinating that that's where it happened. So that is that. Now, I need to show you something here. Okay? I'm going to show you a little bit more of Hakah's video. Then I'm going to read some from the commentaries that are really going to help us out here. That's what I want to show you. Just give me a second.
And he's saying these are Gentiles, actual non-Israelites. Now let's go here. This couldn't have been a better handover.
I'm going to rewind this a little bit because I want to show you how happy he is. So Hakah, sometimes times are hard for him. He gets embarrassed a lot when people call him out for what he does. I just want to show you this. Let's make this bigger. Look closely in the bottom of the screen. Look how
You guys
happy
should
he is.
know
He thinks he
how I'm
did
about to
something
get down
here.
right now.
It's so sad.
Okay, there's no Greek in Acts chapter 11. But watch this, y'all. Let's type in the word Grecian and see if that's in Acts chapter 11. Grecians. This is a head lob. I see Grecians. I see Grecians in Acts chapter 11. So this is what vocab Malone is referring to. And he's saying these are Gentiles, actual non-Israelites. Now let's go here. This couldn't have been a better handover. Thank you so much, vocab. Acts 11 and 19. Look what it says. Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about with Stephen traveled as far as Phoenice, Cyprus, Antioch, preaching the word to none but Jews only. Now watch this.
Add to the word of God. He literally just added to the word of God.
This is such a cut. Just get rid of the whole book of Acts, vocab. They're scattered to all these Gentile nations, but they're only teaching the Jews in these Gentile nations. Now watch verse 20, because this is what vocab is referring to. And some of them were men of Cyprus and Cyrene, which when they were come to Antioch, spake unto the Grecians. This is what vocab Malone is referring to. Now, it doesn't make any sense that they, as one group, they're only talking to the Jews only when they're in these Gentile nations, even though salvation is supposed to be for everybody. But then
it does make sense. It's the only way to make sense of it because you have the logical contrastive. It doesn't make sense if it's just saying more of the same. It's contrasting, and it hangs with chapter 10. My goodness, young sir.
There's another group. They're going to say, let's talk to the Grecians.
Yep. Except it actually means Greeks, which is a more likely reading. I'm going to show you here in a second.
That's because these Jews only right here are Israelites scattered in these places who know they're Israelites. These Grecians are A, Israelites who have lost their identity, or B, Israelites that are following the ways of other nations.
That A, he just put in there. Where in the world did he get that A from? That it could be that's clearly not in there. Did you hear that? What? How much adding to the text is he going to do here? Watch this.
Or the Greeks. How do we make a mistake here?
Wow, bro. I mean, are you guys hearing this? I guarantee we could put up all the money in our bank account, and I guarantee vocab Malone would say he made a mistake here. That's what he just said. It is the other way, Hakah. That is not the case at all. It is the other way. Okay. Let's go back to that one more time before I read these commentaries, okay?
Acts 11 and 19. Look what it says. Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about with Stephen traveled as far as Phoenice, Cyprus, Antioch, preaching the word to none but Jews only. Now watch this, everybody. This is such a cut. Just get rid of the whole book of Acts, vocab. They're scattered to all these Gentile nations, but they're only teaching the Jews in these Gentile nations. Now watch verse 20, because this is what vocab is referring to. And some of them were men of Cyprus and Cyrene, which when they were come to Antioch, spake unto the Grecians. This is what vocab Malone is referring to. Now, it doesn't make any sense that they, as one group, they're only talking to the Jews only when they're in these Gentile nations, even though salvation is supposed to be for everybody. But then there's another group, they're going to say, let's talk to the Grecians. That's
okay. Let's pause right there. People were saying I'm cutting out a little bit. Let's look at some resources. Here. And Dinu is right. I'm going to put your comment on the screen. Dinu. as well as Atom Optimus Prime. We're going to look at a couple of different resources here. Yeah, facts. Okay, let's start with the simple. The Zondervan Pictorial Encyclopedia of the Bible. I'm going to actually go to the entry on Hellenism. This is a multi-volume set. This is the entry on Hellenism right here. See it? Right there. I'm going to go to the end of it. At the very end of it, the article is by Honer, H.W. Honer. And here's what it says. So this is at the end of the article, the entry, rather, I should say, for Hellenism. Okay? Watch what it says. Regarding the reading in Acts 11, verse 20, the word, and then it has Greek actually in the text, okay? It actually has the word there, which is for Greeks, which is Hellenos. The word Hellenos has a slight edge over the variant, and clearly the context indicates Greeks, for it was the Greek-speaking Jews in 11:19 who preached to the Greeks or Gentiles in 11:20. Do you see how it makes sense? So the Jews who spoke Greeks went to the people who were Greek. Understand? It makes sense. Now, let's look at a basic commentary. So that was a Zondervan Pictorial Bible Dictionary. I'm sorry, encyclopedia, rather. Encyclopedia of the Bible. Let's look at the NIV application commentary. Ajith Fernando. We're going to look at what he says in Acts 11:20. And these are resources that help you. You should interact with these resources, not just the KJV Blue Letter Bible. That is not what scholars would do. And the reason I'm saying that is because he claims to be a biblical scholar, okay? And he even did an interview where he claimed to be a professor. My goodness, professor of lies. Acts 11:20. I'm going to read here the tiny little textual note at the bottom. That's why these footnotes are important. Here's what it says. There is some question as to whether the original is Hellenos, which translates Greeks, as in the NIV, or Hellenistas. That's the form of the word there, as in the UBS 4 text, which I showed earlier, which would read Grecian Jews, which is like the KJV he has. And then here's what Fernando says. For discussion on why we chose Greeks here, see Longenecker in his Acts commentary, pages 400, 401. So he says there's a fuller discussion in Longenecker that you should look at to see why Greeks is the better reading. Well, it just so happens that I have Longenecker's volume on Acts. So I pull out Longenecker's commentary. See that? This is John and Acts. This is how thick these commentaries are. And now we're interacting with scholarship, okay? So I'm going to read here from Acts chapter 11, verse 20, just one part on page 400, because it's kind of a long discussion. We're not going to read all of this that he's referring to. It's a lot there. I'm showing you the sources, so you could do this. Hakah, you could buy all these books instead of buying all this gear to look fly and guns and chains and renting cars for your videos. You could buy these books and interact with real scholarship if you'll step up to the plate. And that's what I require of my students. So you're going to need to do this if you want to keep on learning from me. If you don't, I'm going to have to drop you out. You're going to have to flunk the class, okay? Because I don't take second best leftovers. Do you understand? That's the standard. It's really high here. You're going to have to do this. Put your mind into it. Here's what this says. Certainly the contrast between the Jews of verse 19 and those who receive the gospel here in verse 20 makes it all but impossible to understand those referred to in verse 20 as anything other than Gentiles. Thus, it is necessary to read the text as meaning Greeks and as probably originally using the word Hellenos. So he's directly relating to the textual variant we've been talking about here, Longenecker. Now, it's, again, part of a longer discussion, and I encourage you to check it out because we don't rely on commentaries slavishly, but we interact with them. This is what you actually do when you come to a conclusion. You don't just look up the KJV on the internet on some free program you got. That is embarrassing. You would literally do that and think that's the end of the matter? Whew. But let me stop. We're not done. Let's get into some other commentaries and interact with them as well. Okay. Here, I've got Bach. He is a Lucan expert. I've seen him a few times. DTS teacher. Really humble guy. Good guy. Baker. These are great commentaries. Let's go to Acts chapter 11 and see the note he has. We're only reading some of this because the show would take all day if I read the full entry, but you can do this. It's on page 420 of the book I just showed. Here's what he says. Hellenos, or Greeks, is a key variant that refers to ministry to Gentiles. It is supported by, and then he actually lists the witnesses, and that's what scholars do. So what he did is, I'm going to tell you the secret sauce. Bach grabbed the textual commentary on the New Testament, which I'm going to show you here in a little bit, by Metzger, and also used the textual critical apparatus at the bottom of the UBS, United Bible Society, whatever edition he has, and he saw the witnesses there. It's not like people have these memorized, okay? So that's what he did. I just showed you how to do this. This is what is called in school showing your work. It doesn't just relate to math problems. It relates to biblical issues, especially in the relationship in the realm of textual criticism here. So then he says it is supported by P74. Remember, I showed you that earlier. And I'm translating this because it says P74, which is this Papyrus 74. And when I say translating, because the next one is that a left symbol with the 2 superscript. And remember, I told you earlier that means Sinaiticus, the second hand. You can see it if you look real close. Sinaiticus, the second hand of Sinaiticus. A, which is Alexandrinus. D, with the asterisk, which is the original reading in Beza. And 1518, which I told you has a different name. When you look up the scholarship on it, it's difficult to track down. And the different name that I've seen when I looked up the list is 1896. And then I gave you information about 1896 already. And here's what he says. This is likely to be the original reading. And then he puts in parentheses scholars' names with the year and the page number. And one of them is Bruce, 1990-272. Notice how we're following the train here. One scholar refers to another, and then we go to them. So let's see what F.F. Bruce says in his commentary on Acts. Notice how thorough this is. This is why this is difficult, because doing this, it's like Mozart composing a masterpiece that took him all this time, but he's doing it for someone whose tastes only involves liking kids bop music. You see what I'm saying? This is a chef making a fantastic dish of chicken Alfredo, chicken fettuccine Alfredo, right? With the bread and the dip and everything, right? And the espresso, and the person he's feeding only likes chicken nuggets and fries and Sprite. That's what's happening. So I know this is going to go over a lot of the tastes of people that follow Hakah, but don't be that person. Do your diligence, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're in F.F. Bruce, page 237 of his commentary on Acts, and we're going to read the footnote. Notice a lot of this is in the footnotes. It's not even the main body of text, but I am going to read the main body of the text here in a second, okay? And here's what he says. Hellenos, this is the reading of, and then he names these again, these same ones that I've been telling you guys. And he says it's in Eusebius and Chrysostom. So look, as of now, Bruce is the only place I've been able to find where this reading that we're going with, Acts 11:20 Greeks, is in Eusebius and Chrysostom, but I'd like to track that down and find out more. This is how this goes. Each guy tells you a little bit more. If they're doing their homework, and F.F. Bruce is a recognized legend. He's dead now, he's passed, but he was a legend in his own day. No doubt about that. Englishman put out so many books, very prolific. And at first sight of all the versions, he's saying the translation. So scholars sometimes use shorthand that you don't know what they're saying, especially in the footnotes. He's saying what I mentioned earlier, how in the textual critical apparatus, it says the Armenian translations and the Old Church Slavonic translations. He's saying, at first sight, all of the versions. Although, and then he mentions some other variants that are less, and then he mentions the other one that would give you Hellenist. So this gets really technical. When you look at this, you'll see what I'm saying. Then he says this is the important thing that he says. The context plainly requires the sense Greeks as opposed to Jews, and not Grecians or Hellenists. Do you notice the modern scholarship, a lot of it agreeing with the rendering of Greeks, and then they give their reasons. And some of it has to do with the internal coherence of Acts 11 itself. Some of it has to do with it in relationship to Acts chapter 10. Now, here's what I'm going to show you next. I want to show you even a few scholars. I've got a couple things over here on the side of me I'm going to grab. Even scholars who say, I think maybe in this particular context, it should be Hellenist. The logical force of the passage, the weight of it, is so strong that it's obvious it's talking about actual Greeks. They say this should be one instance where we look at this word differently. Now, I don't agree with that solution, but they are forced into that solution because they're like, okay, which textual variant? I go with this one, which I think that's the mistake, but then we should understand it that way. So let me show you a little bit of that. I know this is getting kind of complicated. My guess is he'll misunderstand something I'm saying in the complicated sections, take it out and use it and say, there was really nothing there. He didn't correct anything. That's my guess of what he's going to do. But remember, this man said we can all put up all of the money in our bank account, our life savings, against vocab being wrong here. The fact that he was wrong. He would even admit he's wrong. Remember he said that? After looking at just the KJV, he thought he was done. So here's Colin Hemmer. This is a really technical book, the Book of Acts. In the setting of Hellenistic history, Colin J. Hemmer, I don't even think he was really confessional, as they say. Here's what he says. This is going to get kind of technical. I'm reading from page 194. The reference to Hellenist in this verse poses complex problems highlighted in the contrast between B and D. He's just talking about the manuscript witnesses there. This is not, in fact, a simple case of assessing a Western reading, for the great uncials show much confusion and the versions render the word as Greeks. Kind of like what we've been saying so far, right? And then he says, if here it does mean Greek speakers, they are apparently Gentiles, in contrast with Jews, not as before Greek-speaking Jews, as the term Hellenist seems to have been current only in the primitive period of the church, and all the occurrences of Hellenos seem to represent a secondary stage of interpretation. So basically what he's saying there is that if Hellenos is a later reading, it seems like it's the church understanding that's what it meant. And if it was originally Hellenist, basically the English way to say it, then it must mean something different than other places. Here's my point. Even folks that say, well, I go with the other reading, the one that Hakah was looking at, think the interpretation should be a different way because of the internal coherence and logic of the text itself. I'm interacting with a wide variety of scholars over the past really 60, 70 years or so. Not done. I'm still going to read the F.F. Bruce entry. Don't let me forget. This is Metzger. He's the one who taught Bart Ehrman, but he was faithful, unlike Ehrman. A textual commentary in the Greek New Testament. There's a lot here. So what he does is whenever there's a variant, he gets all into it. This is all just about one variant. It's page after page. We don't have time to look at all that. But you can pick this book up. You can get this. Now, again, if you don't understand the jargon of scholars, this will not make sense to you. It'll be like, here, I know you've never learned Braille, but here's this Braille Bible, like Book of Eli or something. It ain't going to do nothing for you if you can't read Braille. So, look, here's what it says, though. In the present passage, so this is Metzger talking about Acts 11:20. In the present passage, the author seems to draw a contrast between Hellenistus, or the variant readings, and then he lists those, of verse 19, talking about the Jews, where it says Urias, okay? It has been urged that the word must possess some more distinctive meaning than merely Greek-speaking Jews. Thus, now notice he mentions other scholars, Warfield, that's the Lion of Princeton, as they say, and Cadbury argue that it means Gentiles. And then he cites the source there. So Warfield has a whole article on this, okay, that came out in 1883. So this is what I mean by interacting with multi-generational scholarship here, and the JBL, the Journal of Biblical Literature. And it's a whole article on that. That's how deep these guys get. They will literally write not just a commentary on a book, they will write a journal article on one variant of one verse relating to one word. So you can't act like you know what you're talking about unless you've looked at some of this. Then he also mentions the Cadbury discussion in pages 59 to 74 in volume 5 of the Beginnings of Christianity under the section labeled The Hellenist. Now let me read here from page 341 of Metzger's textual commentary in the New Testament, showing that even if it wasn't Greeks, which I believe that is the right reading, Hakah didn't even know there was a variant there because he doesn't know what he's doing. You don't know what you don't know, right? The interpretation, even if the variant is the other way, still is contra Hakah's position. So page 341 says this. In assessing the evidence for the variant readings in the present passage, now Metzger is going to go on to say he doesn't think you can attach much weight to the fact that the reading Greeks is all over. But now he's going to list them, and I think you can attach weight, and that's why a lot of scholars have disagreed with Metzger on this point. Here's what he says, I'm continuing to quote. The early versions all read Greeks. Remember, F.F. Bruce had mentioned that at first sight, the versions, these are the early translations of the Bible, read Greeks. And so he names even more now. So Metzger gets deeper. Each time we learn something, it's like a spiral. So the Latin, Syriac, Coptic, Old Georgian, and Ethiopic. Notice, because see, what happens is in the text critical apparatus of the UBS at the bottom, United Bible Society's Greek New Testament, it doesn't list everything. It lists major witnesses and major translations. But see, the scholars know further because there's a limitation of space. So he, in the textual commentary, which if you notice, these are meant to be companions to each other. Hold on. I want to show you how these are companions. Do you see? Here's the Greek New Testament. And then here is his textual commentary. Do you see how they're like companion pieces here? Right? You guys see that? You see what I'm saying there? So watch this. Watch this. Here's what he says. That is massive. So now it's also in the translations. So we go to the translation second. We look at the Greek first, but we've got Sinaiticus, for example. That's big. We got P74. That's big. But we also have Latin translations, Syriac, Coptic, Armenian, Old Georgian, and Ethiopic. That's massive. Now let me look at the footnote here. Let's say, in 929, the Syriac Peshitta renders Jews who understood Greek, which may show a connection between Chrysostom and the Peshitta. Fascinating. Okay. So there's more stuff there. Okay. Now, that's Metzger's textual commentary. So notice he's saying even if it is that way, here's what it means. But let's look at a more modern textual commentary. This is Comfort's, the New Testament text and translation commentary. This is by Philip Comfort. He's done all kinds of work on this. These are people who know what they're doing. I mean, this is a very important book. Hakah, get this book, please. And next time before you test or challenge me, crack this open. If you don't understand how to look at it, I'll interpret it for you. Page 375 here. We're in his entry for Acts 11:20. See that? I already got the stuff circled and all that. All right, here we go. So he says, which witnesses have the word Hellenist, and then which is tous Hellenistas. That's how you say it in Greek, the Hellenist. Definite article followed by Hellenistas. And then he shows which ones have it, right? And as far as the witnesses, then he shows which translations have it. Now we go on to the variant, tous Ellenos, which is the Greeks. He lists the witnesses and then all the translations, and it's a gang of translations. So this is the preferred reading these days. Now I'm going to read from it. Here's what it says. Presuming that Hellenist means Greek-speaking Jews, BDAG, so that's the joint I showed you earlier, BDAG, which is the standard, which I said when I told Hakah to get that, it was like handing a bazooka to a 2-year-old. BDAG 318, the TR, that's Textus Receptus, WHNU reading does not seem to make sense. So this is where scholars weigh the variance. That's what textual criticism is. You weigh the variance. Because this verse seems to call for a contrast between those who preached only to Jews, 1119, and the people from Cyprian and Cyrene who also preached to Greeks or Gentiles. So there's a dilemma there. And he mentions Metzger's way out of the dilemma, which we've already looked at. So notice we're covering a lot of ground here. And then he says this, the other way out of the dilemma is to accept the variant reading as original, which is what many scholars do. See, for example, Bruce, 1990, page 272. So now we notice we're coming full circle. I told you that I was going to read F.F. Bruce's longer entry in the New International Commentary in the New Testament for the book of Acts. And now I'm going to do this. Now look, what it is the Hebrew Israelites who watch this and just think, rah, Hakah's our man. If he can't do it, no one can. They're going to be like, yeah, vocab was just reading these white scholars and these books and relying on commentaries. First of all, they're not going to look up the ethnicity of anybody. They're just going to assume that. And as if truth has anything to do with that. Hakah was using Strong's. James Strong's was a European, so it's totally hypocritical. But not only that, notice how we went to the actual sources first. And before I read F.F. Bruce's entry, I'm going to actually show you P74. It's literally on my phone. This is the actual leaf from P74. That is actually down there at the bottom. That is where Acts 11:20 appears in P74. It's literally on my phone. You can look these things up using different websites and tools that scholars teach other scholars how to use. For specifically, especially the Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts, they get this really long abbreviation. That's literally P74 right there. You could actually look at the Greek. It's like the fourth or fifth line up. Because of the lacuna, it's difficult for me to tell without more prep, but I believe it's the fourth or fifth line up. But the lacuna does make it different. But you just got to look for two capital lambdas next to each other. That's kind of a giveaway. But you got to do more because of the lacuna. Now, I know I'm using a little bit of technical language, but for some in the audience, they'll appreciate what I'm saying. Now let's go to page 238 through 239. This is a little bit of a longer entry, but please follow along, okay? Here we go. Thus far, the Christians who have fled from the Jerusalem persecution, Hellenist though they were, had restricted their evangelizing activity to the Jewish communities of the various places to which they came. No doubt the members of these Jewish communities were Hellenists like themselves. But in Antioch, some daring spirits among the incoming Christians, men of Cyprus and Cyrene, took a momentous step forward. If the gospel message was so good for Jews, might it not be good for Gentiles also? At any rate, they would make the experiment. So they began to make known to the Greek population of Antioch the claims of Jesus as Lord and Savior. To present him as Messiah to people who knew nothing of the hope of Israel would have been a meaningless procedure. But the Greek terms kurios and soter, notice, it doesn't say they made him known as Messiah yet. It says Lord and Savior. That's a further indication this is to Greeks. Now, he's going to explain it. It does matter. So, kurios and soter is different than saying Messiah. Obviously, it's all referring to the same person. The Greek terms kurios and soter were widely current in the religious world of the Eastern Mediterranean. Many were attempting to find in various mystery cults a divine lord, that's kurios, who could guarantee salvation, that's what a soter does, savior, and immortality to his devotees. Now the pagans of Antioch were assured that what they vainly sought in those quarters could be secured through the Son of God, who had lately become man. That means in recent times. That's what he's saying by that. Suffered death and conquered the grave in Palestine. Now he makes a little footnote there. This does not mean that the proclamation of Jesus as Lord and Savior was something of Gentile origin, derived from the terminology and viewpoint of the mystery cults. See the exhaustive work and conclusive discussion by J. Machen. I actually have this book, J. Gresham Machen, in The Origin of Paul's Religion, 1921. I actually have that book. It's a good book. So there's the further entry. Now, we've exhausted a lot of the resources here, but we actually have not played the rest of this clip. And now when you watch the rest of this, you understand again why we had to do this show.
Because these Jews only right here are Israelites scattered in these places who know they're Israelites. These Grecians are A, Israelites who have lost their identity, or B, Israelites.
Notice that first concept he brought is nowhere in the text. A, Israelites who have lost their identity. Where's that at, Hakah? I think it's in the same place your scholarship is. Doesn't exist. Maybe it's in the same place, that concept, that your grade is, which is in the trash can.
That are following the ways of other nations or the Greeks. How do we know that?
We don't.
Let's take a look at this word for Grecian. I can guarantee you, we could all put up all of the money in our bank accounts.
This dude is getting people to bet their life savings on his academic work. Don't do it, folks. It's a Bernie Madoff scheme. Don't do it. You'll lose your money. Much like he's lost his credibility here.
And vocab alone would say he made a mistake here.
Nope, I would say you made a mistake. No mistakes were made on my end. Now, I do make mistakes sometimes, but not tonight. Not in regards to Acts 11:20 saying Greeks. The only mistake I might have made is taking the time to do this live stream to respond to someone who won't even understand most of what I'm saying.
I guarantee you.
His guarantees are utterly worthless, much like his claim to be a professor.
Because I've heard him say, you guys say that the Greeks are Israelites, but there's already a word for Greek Israelites. It's Hellenistes.
Yep, I did teach you that. Thank you for recounting one of the lessons. However, you've misunderstood how the lesson fits into the larger context. And that's something you should remember, student, is that Hellenists is the thing you're trying to get when it says Gentile. That's right. But that does not discount Acts 11:20, reading Greeks.
He said that. But watch this. Let's see if this is Hellenistes. Because vocab alone, out of his own mouth, he said that this was the word for Greek Israelites. Thawada, Sister Cheryl, greatly appreciate you, Thawada. This is Hellenistes. Now let's click on it. He just cut himself.
So embarrassing.
A Hellenistic or Greek speaking Jew.
By the way, he's proven my point on another issue. Notice that? Just like he said, our teacher, Vocab Malone, said, hey, when you guys try to take the word Gentile and turn it into actually meaning a Jew who follows a Greek custom, language, culture, there's a word for that, and it appears in the pages of the New Testament, which is Hellenist in English manner of speaking. Grecians in the old KJV. He's proving the point that word is valid for that. So when you come to Gentile, you don't get to reinterpret Gentile as a Hellenist because Luke, the author, already knows that word. And in fact, so would the other authors. But they do this again and again in the book of Acts. Luke uses Hellenist, for example, in Acts chapter 6, I believe in Acts 9 as well. And so when they come to Gentile or Greek and they don't like the outcome, which is, Gentile salvation, they literally say, well, those are people, just like he did there. A could mean this, Israelites in a Gentile state of mind, but there's a word for that. So he's proven the point on another issue. Will you remember this lesson, Hakah, or do we need to do future review? Listen, I'm going to have early office hours and open up my desk for tutoring early before school so you can come to get some extra time in.
A Greek-speaking Jew, a Greek-speaking Jew, a Greek-speaking Jew.
He's so excited. He thinks he's doing something. Let's time out Sacrament of Truth movement. I don't have time for that.
Usage. One who imitates a great word. Used in the New Testament of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek.
I don't understand how. I hope that if you've watched this whole program or even caught some of it, you understand how silly what he's doing is now, how utterly ignorant and how utterly backwards it is. And you realize that pride comes before a fall.
He said these were actual Gentiles.
Yeah, because the original reading should be Greek, and even if it wasn't, that's the proper interpretation. I showed massive resources to do this, not just the KJV BRB, bruh.
But he just proved our point that no, these aren't actual. The context disproves that, and the very Greek word disproves that.
Nope and nope. He doesn't pay attention to the conjunction in the beginning of Acts 11:20, which is literally described as a logical contrastive. It is insane. Now, here's the thing. Someone is saying, hey, Hakah is insulting his audience. He does not expect them to look this up, but I don't think he knows. So this is literally what Jesus meant about the blind leading the blind. It's stuff like this. He doesn't know. He didn't know. He didn't even know how to look for this. You know? He's so excited. He's so happy. Do you teachers know what I'm talking about? Where a student is so proud of something they did and you got to grade them a D-. Their enthusiasm, makes you want to give them a better grade, but they just didn't earn it.
In his own, let me see if I can find that video.
So now he's going to jump around for the clip. It is crazy. So check it out. I appreciate everybody up in here. And no, this is not normally when we do things. I got a different schedule this week. And the important thing is the information. I do want the support and the love, ladies and gentlemen. Which what we need there is we need people to become Patreons. We need 2 more to reach 100. Become a channel member. Hit me up on PayPal or Cash App, as I mentioned earlier, one of those. And we can keep on doing work like this. We got a lot more stuff coming. In fact, I have finally started writing my next book. Now, it's going to take a while. I already know that. But I feel like there's some really good stuff in it. And he's just searching
Israelite
around
Defense.
while he does the show.
That? Can you put the link in the chat?
He doesn't find it. He just says something again later. I think that, will be a mistake or whatever. So let's check it out.
Israelite Defense. Help a nigga out, brother.
Start shutting down here. Make sure you hit this like button, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, hit that bell notification. Make sure also that you make a comment, leave a comment there, super chat or super thanks as they call them, please. Appreciate all that. And I know I was a little rough on him, but
okay, this is 5 errors of the Hebrew Israelites. Let's check this out.
He's just poking around trying to find. Yes, I have said that, and he should understand that, and she should be interpreted in Gentile and Greek different. But here in Acts 11:20, that's not the issue. The issue under discussion, number 1, is the variant, which he did not know existed until now. And then number 2, of course, is the question of the interpretation of the variant. And the internal connection between Acts 10 and Acts 11 makes it obvious. And the contrast between 19 and 20 makes it obvious. It is stark looking you in the face, but this religion has blinded Hakah. And he wants to willingly be blinded. Remember last night we went live with Anthony Rogers and Luis? Remember what this brother said? Hakah said that if the Jews are actual Jews, then God does not exist. That's what he said. He's willing to stake his whole belief in the Bible and God on the fact that those Jews are Jews.
On migraines.
Come on,
man, I can't. But like I said, if I present this to vocab,
you've presented it. And I had to take your work and rip it up into 4 pieces and say, start over, son.
He's going to say he was wrong on that.
I'm going to say you're wrong on that. And it's sad and embarrassing. And if you hand in a paper like this again, you're going to be flunked out of my class permanently because I don't put up with this.
He's going to say that these are not Israelite. I'm sorry, these are not Gentiles here.
No, I'm not. I'm going to point to you to the textual critical apparatus and take you on a journey, educating you in the process. You as a novice, as an unlearned rookie, and hopefully the minions who follow you will break out of this when they see how much credibility you have lost here tonight.
So he cannot use Acts chapter 11.
I can use Acts chapter 11 because, first of all, Peter's speech begins and ends with Gentiles. And second of all, Acts 11:20 says Greeks. And if it doesn't, we still have the proper interpretation, as you've seen. And Acts 10 has Cornelius. So yes, I can.
You made a huge mistake.
I did not make a huge mistake. You made multiple huge mistakes tonight. There is egg on your face. Get it off your beard.
That word is dealing with Israelites who speak Greek. He would agree to that.
No, I would not, because you don't know what you're talking about. This man literally said you could put all your money in your bank account on me being wrong here.
Because he said it out of his own mouth. So if you do find that video, brother, and you get the timestamp, just leave a comment in the chat.
Give up. This reminds me of the time that Tony Ray from Hazakim did a response to Hakah's diss rap on us, right? And Hakah said, we're going to respond this night. He never responded to that because he could not. He was clearly out of his league. You know what I mean? There will be no substantial response to this because he's clearly out of his league. What's he going to interact with? What's he going to say? Ron Shields, who is eminently a man of higher character and eminently a man of higher learning than Hakah, he even never responded to our response to his claims about textual criticism and the Trinity not being present in Matthew 28:19-20, as in the 3 persons, being absent. Once we really brought the hammer down the last time I was on the dividing line, if you saw that show. He never responded because he could not. There will be no real response to this in any way. It's not possible. There's nothing he can do. You know? 8, you have the Greeks that are mentioned in Acts chapter 11. And most of the audience that the New Testament letters are written to is a mixed audience. And you can even tell by some of the ways things are worded and the things are spoken. And then you go to...
How in the world are most of the books of the New Testament written?
So there he transitions to something else. So that's that with that. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've learned here tonight. There's more that I could show you, but I think this has been sufficient for now. I hope that you enjoyed this strange hour of a live stream. And let's just block Sacramento Truth Movement. He's clearly not listening. It's really sad. Any questions from the audience? Any questions from the audience? Anybody got something they want to say with the cue? Questions from the audience. I will take them now. And let's see. And Andre says, he'd rather be identified. I'll put this up here. I'll put this higher up here. Yeah. He'd rather be identified as a Jew and be wrong to be who God created him to be, brother. You're a black man. Yeah. Hakah is very lacking in his reading comprehension. You know, it's crazy. It's true, but he actually looks like a certified genius next to my man Sargent. You know? Rome says the book of Mark was written to Gentiles, right? Well, yes. It's understood to be written from Rome, usually. That can't absolutely be proven, but definitely it's not anti-Roman. It sort of has pro-Roman elements in it. And it's clear by the immediatelys that it's written to men of action. It's the shortest of the Gospels. So it definitely has a person with a Greco-Roman mindset in mind, if you look at it. No doubt about that. Texas chick or whatever that is says Sicarii. That's a Hebrew Israelite sect. Dave says Sicarii starting to start as a marvel. Yeah. Never matters. Yeah. Yeah, they have. Just answering the question on the screen there. Vocab Malone is a shield, clowning things he can't disprove. Sicarii got you beat, heathen Jew. Good point. Yep, his belief in God is conditional. That's right. If you had a question earlier, you're going to have to drop it in now. Adam says, this was very good content. Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope people followed. Did what I could. Thank you, watchers, for buying the book. I appreciate that as well. Yeah, Andre, no self-awareness. This is true. And Nate, shout out to you. Best mod. Shout out to Dinu. Best editor. Thank you. What's up with the name, though? I don't get the name. I don't like the name. Yes, they do. Oh my goodness. Why does it matter? All right, I think that's a getting close about there. I think that's pretty much it, man. I think we've hit everything we need to put on the screen there. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of love there. Vocab Malone addressed the allegations of your connections to Mossad. I didn't know there were allegations. I mean, isn't that the Israel Intelligence Agency? By the way, okay, that actually does remind me. You guys know that tonight I had a 30-minute conversation with Amari Stoudemire. It's wild. I didn't record it. That wasn't part of our agreement or arrangement. But I did share a screenshot on Twitter. You know, you can believe it or not believe it. But basically, he'd said the same thing to me that he's already said to others, which is, you know, he did not intend to go that way. But, I mean, you can see right there, I talked over 30 minutes. Again, it always makes a problem with that. He did not intend to co-sign One West doctrine. Now, I'm leaving my show up because what he said, he still said in the interview. But I am glad to see he's walked away from that. And I did tell him I would like to talk further sometime about Jesus Christ as Messiah, you know. And hopefully we could, for real. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to jump out here and keep Hakah in prayer. Keep his students in prayer. Keep Amari Sotomayor in prayer. And, class dismissed.